You ever notice how the people you trust most are the ones who can break you in ways no stranger ever could? I used to think the scariest thing in the world was being alone. Turns out I was wrong. The scariest thing is thinking you're living with someone you love and realizing too late that something else has taken their place. If you think you know what fear feels like, wait until you hear what I found in my basement. If you've ever had someone manipulate you, twist your emotions, or make you doubt your own sanity, hit that like button. This is one of the most intense psychological revenge stories you'll hear today. And trust me, the payoff is worth it. Subscribe for more stories like this, and let's dive right in. I always thought grief was something that faded. That time smoothed down the jagged edges, turned the screaming ache into a quiet, dull throb. And honestly, for a while, it did. After my mom passed away, my dad and I learned how to function again, slowly, clumsily, like we were relearning how to breathe. He was older, tired, softer in all the ways a lifelong mechanic tends to break down. But he was still him, still my dad, still the man who'd grunt a greeting in the morning, complain about his back, tease me for my lousy coffee-making skills, nap through his old westerns, all the little routines that made life feel normal. Until this year, when everything tilted sideways. I'm 23. I work swing shifts in a warehouse downtown. Not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on. He had a pension that barely did the same. Moving home wasn't the dream, but it was the reality. We weren't unhappy. We weren't broken. We were just surviving. And then it began, slowly, softly, like the first crack in a window that's been under pressure for years. It started with the basement. I remember standing at the top of the basement stairs, hearing him grumble that old line. Still got some use in these old hands. He insisted on fixing a leaking pipe down there. I offered to do it, but he brushed me off. That was expected. What wasn't expected was the hours he spent down there. Hours of thuds and muttered curses and metallic clangs echoing up the staircase. When he finally came up, he looked different, refreshed, almost euphoric. He hadn't smiled like that since before Mom got sick. I should have paid attention then, should have looked closer. But you never see the monster the first time it walks past you. The next morning, he cooked breakfast. Real breakfast. Humming, flipping bacon, acting like a man who'd been asleep for years and suddenly woke up starving for life. I laughed. I took it as a good sign. We spent the whole week like that. Him mowing the lawn, fixing things, repainting, cleaning, working like a man half his age. But then came the Friday night. The first night I tried to leave the house. He clutched his chest and said his heart felt tight. His face went pale, and I felt that old instinct kick in. Protect him, care for him, sacrifice my plans for him. I stayed home. I watched him relax the second I sat down. I watched that pain evaporate like it had never existed. And still, I excused it. The second time, he claimed his back had locked up so badly he couldn't walk. Funny how it unlocked the moment I canceled my plans. The third time, he faked dizziness so hard he almost convinced himself. But this wasn't just manipulation. This wasn't clinginess. There was something else under the surface. Something cold, calculating, purposeful. I started to feel like a prisoner, and he was the guard. My friends joked that I had been grounded at 23. If only they knew. If only I knew. Because then came the sunlight. A week later, I watched him kneeling in Mom's old garden bed. The sun was cutting across the yard, throwing crisp shadows from every tree, every fence post, every flower pot. But not him. He had no shadow. I stared at the grass around him. Perfect, uninterrupted sunlight. No silhouette, no shape, nothing. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, told myself it was a trick of the angle. Then I tested it. "Hey, Dad, can you help me with this pot?" I called, gesturing to a sunlit patch of patio. He looked up at me, and there was fear in his eyes. Not annoyance, not exhaustion. Fear. He avoided the sunlight. He avoided the windows. He avoided every beam of daylight like it was poison. That night, I lay awake, my skin prickling with a quiet, gnawing horror. Something was wrong with him, or with whatever he'd become. I confronted him. 2 nights later, I told him he'd changed. I asked what really happened in the basement. His whole expression shifted. His eyes went flat, hollow, as if someone had turned off the personality switch. "Drop it," he said, and my stomach dropped with it. So I waited. And last night, I finally made my move. I pretended to sleep, listening to him pad through the house with those impossibly soft footsteps, the locks clicking, the floorboards creaking, the quiet, inhuman stillness of someone pretending to be human. When he finally went to his room, I crept downstairs. No lights, bare feet, heart punching my ribs like it wanted out. I opened the basement door. Cold air hit me, cold like a cave, damp like a grave. My flashlight sliced through the dark, and that's when I saw it. The dirt patch, disturbed soil, fresh, wrong. Every instinct screamed at me to run. I didn't. I knelt down and dug. The first scrape of my trowel hit fabric, denim. The next handful, uncovered flannel, my dad's shirt. And then I found his face, my real father, pale, waxy, dead for weeks, buried like an unwanted secret. I screamed without making a sound. My whole body shook. My brain cracked open with the truth. I hadn't been living with my father. I'd been living with something else. And then I heard it. Creak! A footstep at the top of the stairs. I looked up. He was there, smiling, that sad, unnatural smile. The kind predators use when they're pretending to be gentle. He descended the stairs with that impossible quietness, like gravity didn't apply. And he told me everything. He told me my father fell, hit his head, died instantly. He told me he'd come through after the death, like a shadow peeled off its owner. He told me he buried my father so I wouldn't have to. He told me he fixed the pipe, fixed the house, took care of me. He told me he was created from my father's love, fear, and need to protect me. He told me he would never leave. He told me he would keep me safe forever. And that was when something in me snapped. Not fear, not grief. Something hotter, sharper, revenge. Not the kind you plot against someone who hurt your pride. The kind you plot against something that stole your life. I kept my face blank. Pretended to accept him. Pretended to trust him. Pretended to collapse under the weight of the nightmare. I let him walk me upstairs. I let him turn on the TV. I let him think I was broken. But while he watched his westerns with that imitation smile, I watched him back. He had weaknesses. He avoided direct sunlight. He checked locks obsessively. He moved silently, but he didn't float. He still touched the floor. And most importantly, he believed he was my protector, my caretaker, my family, which meant he believed I wouldn't hurt him. But my father loved me enough that this thing crossed over to protect me. He would forgive me for what I was about to do, because tonight I'm taking back my life. I waited until dawn, until sunlight streamed in through the living room window. I opened the blinds quietly, slowly, making sure the beams hit the floor like golden knives. He looked up from the couch. "Son, what are you doing?" I didn't answer. I stepped aside. Sunlight flooded the room. He recoiled instantly, hissing in pain, skin blistering where the light touched. The smell of burning hair and something darker filled the room. I kept advancing, pulling open every curtain, every blind. He staggered back into a corner, eyes wide, the imitation fear finally overtaking the imitation love. "Please," he whispered, "I'm here to protect you." "No," I said. "You're here to replace him." He collapsed to his knees, smoke rising from his shoulders. "You don't understand." I stepped forward, grabbed his wrist, and dragged him directly into the center of the room. He screamed. His skin cracked, split, peeled like ash. His face twisted. No longer my father's, no longer anything human, just a mask melting off a creature that never belonged in the light. He reached for me, not to hurt me, but to cling to me, to survive. I let him burn. When the screaming ended, all that remained was a pile of dark, brittle residue and silence. I didn't cry. I had cried enough. Sometimes the monsters in our lives don't show up as villains. Sometimes they show up wearing the faces of the people we miss, the people we long for, the people we'd give anything to see again. But love that traps you isn't love. And sometimes the only way to honor the dead is to destroy what's pretending to be them. If this story hit you in the chest, if it gave you chills or made you think twice about what hides in the shadows, hit that like button. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you found something wearing your father's face? And make sure you subscribe for more intense, emotional, and mind-bending revenge stories.